What's up, beautiful people? It's your homegirl, Shameless, all up in my bedroom. This is the bedroom. I will give you a tour at some point, but for now, this video is my labor and delivery story. As some of you know, I plan to have a home delivery, and there are many details that I want to get into. And if you watch the original video on Max and Maya living, you'll see that I had a home birth, but I wanted this video to give you an in-depth look into what was going on in my mind. What was I thinking when I was trying to squeeze a giant papaya out of my Maya? So let's get into this labor and delivery story, okay? So it was Wednesday, 3 a.m. I'm in bed, sleeping, but I keep waking up because I feel what I thought was like cramps, like menstrual cramps. I'm like, why am I waking up? Kept waking up, going to sleep, waking up, and finally I'm like, I should download the contraction app. This might be that. So I download the app and I hit it, and I hit it again when it's done. And come 4 o'clock, I was like, I don't want to be in bed next to Max while I'm like in pain. I don't want to wake him up. So I left and I went to the living room, and for 2 hours I was by myself. At 6 a.m. So what are we on now? 6 a.m. Yeah, it's still Wednesday. 6 a.m. Wednesday morning, I call my midwife, Renee, and I tell her just to keep her posted. And honestly, I was like, this is not it. I don't know why I thought this wasn't it. I've never had a child before, so I told Renee, I'm like, I have these contractions, but the app says they're practice, because there's no consistency. They're not shortening. They're like some of them are like 20 minutes apart, and some of them are 5, and it's just all over the place. So I was like, I don't think this is it. And she's like, okay, well, give me a call at 8 a.m. and let's see if you progress or change. So at 8 a.m., I call her. I'm like, it's more or less the same. I don't think you should come, because she's 2 hours away. And I felt guilty, because if she comes 2 hours and she has to go back 2 hours and it's not it. She's like, okay, Maya, I'm going to come because it sounds like you're having contractions. But I was like, yeah, but the app says it's not the real deal. She's like, I'm coming anyways. So my midwife, Renee, and my doula, Frida, they both live in the same town. They drive out here together. And I more or less have the same random contractions. No rhyme or reason. But Frida, my doula, is amazing. They're both so nurturing. And they both provide like different energies. But with Frida, she is the massage queen. And so she was giving me massage. And then Renee suggested I go for a walk. So Max and I go for a walk. And I'm like, Max, this ain't it. I don't think this is it.
Do you think they're going to go home tonight?
I think so, yeah. This is not, this baby, I could tell. Like, look at me.
Yeah.
I'm like awake, coherent.
Yeah.
Like I should be like this.
Well, we have to check in soon then.
So when I came back home, I told them, I was like, I think you should go. Because I also don't feel good having you here. And if it is, I don't know. I just told them to go. So before they left, Frida gave me another massage in the bed, and it knocked me out. Because at this point, I hadn't slept. So what are we now? It's still Wednesday, but it's like Wednesday afternoon. Like maybe 2 p.m. So I knock out till like 6 p.m. I wake up. Contractions are gone. Completely gone. And I'm like, oh, like, according to the app, it says like, these are practice Braxton Hicks. They could come in a week or 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there's that. So we go about life as usual. We start watching Silicon Valley. I'm laughing my butt off as if nothing is about to happen. And then it's time to go to sleep, and I can't sleep. I'm having these contractions. But these are worse because they're close. They're closer together. And when I move, a contraction. When the baby moves, a contraction. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So again, I bear it in the living room while Max is in here sleeping. Has no idea what's happening. And I think again, maybe this time 5 a.m. Now it's Thursday. I call the midwife and I'm like, this is really, really intense. So instead of her coming, she has another midwife that she works with, Ami. And Ami is an hour closer to me. So she comes to check on me to see where I'm at. And she does a cervical examination, which I hate them. Anyways, she checks and she's like, oh yeah, you're in what do you call it, the latent phase. You're having contraction. You're not in active labor right now. So if you were to come into the hospital, you would be turned away at this point. So let me know what you want to do. Do you want me to stay here with you? Do you want me to go? And I'm like, go, leave. Like, I have this, like, I don't want to be a burden to anyone mentality. So she leaves. But once she leaves, they get even more intense. And this time I FaceTime Frida, the doula, because I'm like, what can we do to alleviate these contractions? Like, they're back to back. And so Max is like, she's trying to guide Max through massages. And they're not really helping. And then she's like, you have to try to lie down. You have to try to like rest. So I was like, rest? How can I rest with this? So anyways, I make my way to the bed and it hurts, but at least I get to knock out for like 30 seconds. And so I remember hitting this app, the contraction app, and then it says, you are in active labor, get ready and go to the hospital. And I'm like, it's never said that before. It always says, these are practice. You're not going to have a baby for another week or two. Now it's like, Trick, get ready. We going in. And so I remember telling Max to fill up the pool. And then I still was lying down. And at this point, my water doesn't break, but it starts to leak. So it's leaking. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is it. And so I call my midwife. And now it's going to take everyone 2 hours to get over. So what happened? Let me backtrack. They get here. It's super intense. I get in the pool, which in theory should be relaxing. But every time I went on my back, it was the worst contractions ever. If I was on my all fours, they were more bearable. And that meant I was spending most of my time on all fours or on my knees in the pool. But having done that, I'm now putting all this pressure on my thighs and my hips, and they're starting to get tense and they're seizing up. And I'm like, ow. So every time I have a contraction, like Frida, my doula, is like, you have to relax your butt. Your butt is like tight. And I was like, I can't relax my butt. Like it's so hard. And so we get out of the pool and I get into the living room and there, she starts like trying to massage and try to loosen and relax me. And at this point, everything is just so intense. I wasn't aware of how demanding I was on Max. Max was with me since like 6 a.m. and I was just going through it, and he hadn't eaten anything. He hadn't eaten, hadn't used the bathroom. So I remember when I went to the bathroom, that's when he decided, I didn't know this, he told me after, he decided to go get something to eat, a banana. So I'm in the bathroom peeing and then a contraction comes. I'm like, Max! It's the only name I feel comfortable yelling. And so somebody else runs over to me and gives me their hand. Their cute little tiny hand. I think it was Ami, one of the midwives. But we go back into the pool. And I will say there's something so beautiful about support, womanhood, partnership. The fact that I had like this warm embrace, because I didn't know how I was going to feel going through labor. I thought I wanted to be alone, or I don't know, but I really appreciated having everyone there. And Frida was like trying to relax my jaw. Ami was like giving me her hand. Frida was just giving me positive affirmations. And then I had my whole like affirmations on the wall, like lights. And it was a very, very supportive, loving environment. And I think one of the things that I did that I don't want to say regret, but I had learned about this technique where it's called silent breathing. And if you can breathe silently, you will lower your adrenaline and you will increase your oxytocin. So every time I had a contraction, Max, because I had asked him to remind me to breathe silently, he's like, Maya, remember, breathe silently. I'm like, it doesn't feel good to breathe silently. And apparently, this is a technique that was in one of my books, and a lot of midwives out here in Sweden preach by it. But I was like, no. Every time I had a contraction, I was breathing silently. I felt like I wasn't progressing because I was so focused on like holding my breath in a sense, like, because I'm letting it out slowly, which means I'm also letting the baby out slowly. And so after 5 hours, okay, 5 hours of these contractions, I am tired because I haven't slept. My birth team, like they all look exhausted. And so I was like, can you guys just go take a break? And then Renee starts laughing at me. And then Frida's like, let's go, ladies. So they all leave. And then Max is the only one left. Last man standing, Max. And he's so freaking, he knows me. That man knows me. He opens my Spotify and plays the playlist I had called Labor of Love. And I just put a bunch of tracks that, I don't know, that I think are inspiring or that are going to make me feel good. The first song was by Moana, You're Welcome, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. What can I say except you're welcome? So that's, Max and I start singing and dancing. And every time I have a break, we go back to singing and dancing, and then I have my contraction. I'm like, "Argh!" But I decided to start letting my voice go because I felt when I let my voice go, I was able to let my vagina go. Like when I was holding on to the breath, like it was like, so if you read, I highly recommend, what was it? Ina May's book, Ina May's Guide to Pregnancy. I've mentioned it before. That as well as Orgasmic Birth. So Max and I had watched Orgasmic Birth, and it's basically relating birth to it's sex, it's sexuality, it's babies were made out of sex. And so in the hospital setting, you've kind of eliminated that because it's a medical room. But when you're birthing at home, you have free reign to express yourself however you want. So now that the ladies had left, it was just Max and I. And so we start making out. And the funny thing was when we watched Orgasmic Birth, the documentary, he's like, you're not that couple. Like you wouldn't do that. I was like, nah, I'm good. But like when you have a baby that you want out and you have the love of your life right there, it's so intense. So this man, it was as if he was in labor. He started beating sweat and he's wiping it off and he's just there for me. And because my ass was so tired, it was like frozen. I was like, shake my ass, Max. So Max is shaking my ass. He's making out. We're making out together. And then when I have a contraction, this was actually a really, really good tip that helped like get me out of the pain. He put his hand here and here and pressed as hard as he could. And it was like I didn't feel any contraction pain. So Max is like vice gripping my head, shaking my ass, making out with me just so this baby can come out. And what I was doing was I took my hand and I was cupping my vagina. Oh, and let me backtrack a little bit. They were doing cervical examinations, which I didn't like. I'm like, I don't like that you have to put a finger in to check. Like, I'm trying to get this baby out. So when Ami did it the last time, I'm like, what did you feel? And she said, it's the sac and then the head. So I put my finger in just to know what she's feeling. And I'm like, okay, noted. I'll be doing my own cervical examinations. Obviously, I don't think I could have the confidence to do that the moment they walked in. But after 5 hours of like them being with us and me having asked them to leave, I felt way more confident and prepared to like just handle my ish. So I was cupping my vagina every time I had a contraction. Like, so you don't have to push. Your body just does it for you if you're not on medication, and I wasn't on anything. So I was just like, my body was just pushing, and I put my hand there. So one, I had like something to focus on. So I was pushing into the hand, and then I also put my hand there so the baby knows like mommy's on the other side. Mommy's out here. She's ready to catch you whenever you're ready. So I was doing that, and like, man, I progressed so quickly doing that, and I kept telling myself, ring of fire, get to the ring of fire. And basically that's when the baby's head crowns, and it's crowning in your freaking labial lips, and your every orifice is like stretching to accommodate the head. And you have to be careful timing wise, and like you have to take your breath, because then you can rip. And so the good thing is I don't have anything to do, just listen to my body. And I knew that the ring of fire lasts like not that long compared to contractions, which keep going and going and going. And so when I felt the burn, I was like, yes, we're there. And then I put my hand down again, and I could feel our baby's hair like just ouchy in the water like this. And I was like, Max, the head, I can feel the head. I don't think he realized that like the head, like I can feel the head versus like putting my finger in to feel something. And at this point I felt more of my water leak, because it never really broke. So I felt water leaking out into the pool, and the head comes out even more, but this time there's something else I'm feeling. And I was like, what is that? Here's the head. And what's this bump? And I'm like, oh my God, I think it's my butthole. Like, I think I just ripped my vagina to my butthole. So I started to freak out, and I'm like, Max, go get Renee. And I was like, have I just completely split in half? So I was like, Maya, feel for your butthole. Like, find your butthole. So I put my hand down there, and I was like, there's your butthole. And then I start tracking upwards. I'm like, there's skin, and there's something, and then there's a head. So I'm like, what is that something? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like, what is going on? And I think it was the baby's hand. So I think it was like this. So I felt this thing, and it translated like a butthole to my head. So Renee comes in, and she's putting on her gloves, and I feel better because I'm like, okay, I'm not split in half, but I don't know what the heck is going on. And she puts her hands in the water. She's like, the baby's already here. I'm like, I know. So she like takes it out and puts it on my chest. Oh. I told myself like to be quiet, like silent breath, like have a peaceful environment. Nah, I couldn't. I was just like overwhelmed with love and shock, and it was so much. It was so much. And the time it took for Max and I to do that together was 2 hours. So our total, like, I guess, I don't know, like active labor was 7 hours for that day. And then, I mean, the other ones, I don't know if I'd consider that labor. They said it was practice, so I ain't counting that one. I'm counting the 7 hours. And it really was so beautiful that I got to give birth at home, in my bedroom, with loving, supportive, kind people, my husband. And it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Like, and home births are not for everyone. I remember going through what I was going through, and I'm like, why did I decide to have a home birth? Because you can't help but look for an exit. Well, I can't help but look for an exit out of this. I'm like, why did I have to do this? Why couldn't I just go to the hospital? And I'm like, Trick, because you always do things this way. Like, no, you can't just compost. You have to go all out composting. Like, you can't just, like, face your fears. You gotta jump out of planes to face your fears. Like, I am such an extremist when it comes to facing things that, that's why I had a home birth. And I honestly, I wouldn't. You have to be mentally strong, because I kept looking for ways out, and I wasn't saying anything out loud. I was just thinking these thoughts, and I kept having to redirect my thoughts. I'm like, nope, the hospital's an hour away. Nope. And like, actually, when the baby started to come down, I was like, oh, like I was getting distracted. I'm like, nope, this baby needs you. You need to get the baby out. If you start wasting time, you're compromising the baby's health. You're compromising their heart rate. So I was just so like in the zone. And yeah, didn't rip. Thank God. I thought I tore in half. I didn't. And I think that was because I wasn't pushing. I wasn't doing anything unless my body did it. Like, my body was pushing. I wasn't afraid. So if you're afraid, you tend to seize up. And if you're like afraid and tense and pushing against fear, it's like you're bound to rip. You're bound. Or if you have, say you have like painkillers and you don't feel anything, you have to be with a practitioner who knows exactly how to guide and when to tell you to push. And yeah, Oh, that was like one of the things I was so grateful that didn't happen to me. I was like, please, I don't want to tear, but if I do, it's okay. I'll deal with it. I'm good. So that's my labor and delivery story, but we have like a vlog of the entire scenario on Max and Maya Living. That's our channel. But this is more like giving you context because you just see and you hear stuff. But this is just the behind the scenes. So F a silent breath, yo. That did not work for me. It was all about roaring, which is exactly what I did. But we'll meet our little one. I gave birth to a very healthy baby girl named Saga. How much did she weigh? They do grams here, so 3,036 grams is how much she weighs, which I can't remember in pounds. I'll probably put over here when I'm editing. But thank you so much for the lovely comments, support, to all the moms out there. What on earth? It doesn't matter what route you choose. Just get to the finish line. Like it's not about trying to prove anything to anyone. Like honestly, when I was going through the motions, I'm like, God damn it. Like this is not for everyone. I'm glad I did it. But I remember saying, I'm like, I could never do this again. Now I'm like, I forget about that because postpartum, the aftermath, the storm, the hell week after is way more intense than labor. Labor is nothing compared to. So I think I'm going to do a video on the post because man, I wish I had known. I wish I had known. Anyways, until next time, remember to do you, be you, and stay true, boo. Be shameless. She's a shameless mama, yo. Max has the baby. That's why there's no baby here. So I can do this. She's got some lungs.
Thumbnail.